Hi, I'm Dave Dinkel with your 2-Minute Tip Special Series. The question and the feedback I'm getting on this one is, realtors tell me that wholesaling is illegal. Oh boy. Well, look, this is going to be very simple. They don't know what they're talking about. If you go to an area where they have senior realtors, they're brokers, been in the business a long time, you go to them and you sit down and say, how'd you make your fortune? They're not going to say, I made it through commissions. They're going to say to you, I own 60 doors, I own 40 rental properties. They bought those as investors. I said to you in another series, realtors make tips at 2.5% to 6% or 7%. Look, investors make a lot more money. If you're an investor realtor, you can always make the 2.5% or 2% to 7%. But you can also pick out properties you want to do yourself. Here's a good example. I get a call from a broker and he says, I don't have the money to close on this. As a matter of fact, I don't have any credit. I don't have anything. But I have a property under contract for $400 and some odd thousand. I'm not going to tell you the some odd $1,000 because you could find it in the public record. And I said to him, what do you need? He says, well, I have an end buyer. End buyer is going to pay me $600 and some odd thousand. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, I just want you to do a transactional funding, A to B, B to C, same day. I said, okay. Called the closing agent. It was set up. I sent in the $400 and some thousand. Closed the B to C the same day. Next day I got my money back. And I looked at the HUDs beforehand and I saw that on the A to B HUD, he made 6% on the 400 and some thousand, so $24,000. Not a bad start. With a pocket listing like that, you don't have to have another broker or agent come in and split the commission. He also sold it to an end buyer that he charged a 3% commission at $600 and change. So $24,000, $18,000 and change, $19,000 it turned out. So we're chunking along here at what, 40 some thousand dollars. Well, when all was said and done, he netted $109,000. So had he just got the listing and put it up, a buyer's agent came in and split it with him, he'd be looking at a really sharp $12,000 or $13,000 amount of money. But he made $109,000. Now, before you get into your hair standing on end and you're saying, is it legal? Depends on your listing agreement. And I say that because I just saw it happen in New York where the listing agreement said very simply, I do not, agent says to the seller, I do not have to show the property for 30 full days on the MLS. And during that time, I can buy it myself or I can sell it to an investor at what may be below market value. Big disclosure. Seller wants out. Motivated seller. Is it ever going to be listed? No. Or if it is listed, it's going to be listed as under contract the day before it closes. Just to say, I listed it at this price, I got that price. I'm the best agent in the world. I don't agree with the practice of pocket listings because they're not good deals in most cases, frankly. The average new investor, here's an agent say, I have a pocket listing. He thinks it's going to go for less than what it would have had it been listed. If it's a deal, he's right. But that agent knows exactly what it should be selling for. And if he's not an investor, he's interested in a commission at the highest possible price. Don't get yourself in a trap where you hear the agent say it's a pocket listing, I'm going to give it to you. He couldn't give it to anybody else at that price. Now, if he says to you, I'm going to give it to you and I want half of the profit, now you have a problem. You're in collusion and the seller has a case. State has a case. He can lose his license. So don't get yourself messed up in these deals where if you know it's not right, if it doesn't smell right, and you wouldn't want it to happen to you, then don't do it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm not trying to be biblical. I'm trying to be common sense. Just common sense. Treat people as you would want to be treated. Let's touch on the issue and answer the question. Is wholesaling illegal? 2-letter word, no, caveat, if done correctly. If you go to a homeowner and you say, here's my contract, you haven't done anything incorrect at all. You have now an equitable interest in the property. Let's say you go to that same homeowner and you say, what are you willing to sell it for? And the homeowner says, yes, I'll take $20,000. You say, okay, I'll be back with a contract. You bounce out of there and you call your best buddy and say, put it on our email list at $45,000. And you do. And you sell it. You have a guy on the other end that says, I'll pay $45,000. There's a bidding war. You're at $60,000. But you don't have a contract. So, by the way, you go back to the homeowner next day, as you said you did, and you have them sign the contract. You now have an equitable interest as of that day, not as of the day you advertised it, which means you have committed a problem for yourself. And the problem is you've advertised a property and you're receiving, start say commission. You're not receiving commission. You're receiving remuneration without being licensed. Now, depending on the state you're in, that can be fairly serious. The fine can be whatever. So had you waited one day You could have then advertised it because you have an equitable interest in the property, whether you're going to sell the property, even though you don't own it yet, you will at the closing table, or you're going to sign the contract, do a JV agreement with somebody else who brings a buyer. You can advertise the property, but not on the MLS. Now here's a caveat to that. It used to be there was a site called Postlets, and what you did on Postlets is you put your property on there and it advertised it everywhere. And you can still see some of those sites where they advertise it on Zillow and Trulia, where a lot of realtors advertise. And when a new property comes up, there are autoresponders that other investors and realtors look at, and boom, it pops up in front of them. And what do? They go to the MLS, they pull it up, and they see that you're not the listing agent, and you're not the owner of the property. In fact, if it's listed with somebody else, what do? They call the other agent, and they say, there's a guy out there, Dave Dinkel, who's offering your property at below list price. It's some sort of scam. What happens? The listing agent who you've worked with to get the property under contract gets crazy. And he comes and threatens to sue you and put you in jail and all these crazy things which you cannot do if you did it right. If you're going to be an investor, learn how to do wholesaling correctly. For example, let's say you're going to do wholesaling to wholesaling. Another wholesaler puts up a property. Now, you like the property and you think your buyer's list would be receptive to it, specifically one large buyer. So you go to the guy that has it on his list. I started to say under contract. He has it on his list. You call him up and you say, Dave, I'm interested in 123 Main Street. How much is there in it? That means, how much do I get if I sell it? He says, mark it up whatever you want. There's nothing in it. My spread's too small. Even if it's $100,000, my spread's too small. Mark it up whatever you want. Now the key question here is, do you have a contract on it? If he says not yet, don't do it. You're not transferring an equitable interest from him to you. He doesn't have an equitable interest. So if you go and advertise the contract or advertise the property, you violated what I said before. So if he says yes, then you need to say, can you send me a joint venture agreement, an assignment of contract, whatever else which gives you an equitable interest in his interest, and then you can do it legally. So what tends to happen with real estate agents is they are portrayed, and they are, licensed professionals. They're licensed by the state they're in. Then they have to go through a rigorous licensing program. And in that program, basically, they learn exactly how not to do wholesaling and rehabbing and the things that we do. Ironically, about 2 years ago, one of my students came to me and he said, actually, he's not a student, his wife is, but he came to me and said, National Board of Realtors, came to me and asked me to come to a symposium. Now, there's going to be about 20 of us, and we're going to talk about how realtors can become investors. They're going to create a course. I won't tell you the reason why they're creating the course, but basically it has to do with they can't keep realtors in the system because they don't make enough money. How to turn them into investors so they have an opportunity to really, keep them in our system so we can make money on them. He wasn't able to attend, but it did give me an insight into, if you're an agent out there and your hair's standing on end and you don't believe these things about what I'm saying, you may get an opportunity to be licensed as an investor somewhere down the road. As for now, as investors, we need a driver's license, and that's it if you're going to drive. Some of my students have a driver, and some of them use Uber. Long and short of the story is, I don't care what the people around you say. I don't care if this is a firestorm, and I'm used to them, of people coming to you and saying, you cannot do it. You can do it if you do it legally and properly. And I just came out of a lawsuit that I funded because one of the other REIAs in another county called me up and said, we have a problem. Two of the people that come to our meetings have been accosted by Department of Business and Professional Regulation, both for doing business without being licensed. So I said, let me talk to him. The first person, the guy, was licensed. He's a licensed agent. So I said, just send him your license number. He did. It was over in 30 seconds. But the second one was an elderly woman who put a $10 earnest money deposit on a contract, got it under contract. An agent came along, a broker, and he tried to induce the seller to list the property, and she wouldn't list it with him. She wanted to sell it through the investor, her friend. So the agent, the broker, immediately went to the DPPR and said, hey guys, unlicensed. Well, with the complaint, they came back and made the complaint against her. So I said to the head of the other REIA, I'll send my attorney after it and I'll take care of the legal fees because this is a precedent. I don't want to keep having these cases presented without having a resolution to them. Now, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, had she not had a signed contract, she couldn't have advertised it, and I couldn't have done anything about it. However, she had a signed contract, and we finally resolved the case with no anything. Okay, no resolution except for the fact that she's done and cleared. Now, one of the attorneys in that chain decided to say she didn't put a large enough earnest money deposit up. Now, we go back to Florida Supreme Court in our case has ruled the amount of the earnest money deposit is not the actual fact. The value of the contract to purchase it is the value of the earnest money. So you got that out of the way. But what I'm saying to you is, in other states, and I'd love to mention the name of the state, they've got everyone bondoozled into believing that you can only sell or transfer the contract because that's a state law. They did that. They enacted that as a state law. So that's what you have to do in those states. So is it legal? If you make it legal because you do it correctly, it is. And thousands of contracts nationwide close every day because it's legal if you do it properly. I look forward to seeing you in the next 2-minute tip.